My name is Paul. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Paul.
And it's oh,
what?
thank you. No, and I'm counting the people who didn't have their hands in the air out there. You know what I'm saying? So, yes, exactly. I know who you are. But my therapist will be calling you later on this afternoon. It's great to be here. It's good to be here, and it's good to be sober. And it's been a wonderful weekend. I want to thank the committee for inviting me up here. I know how these conventions work. You get you guys working hard all year, and then you get somebody on Friday night who never went to one planning meeting telling you how you should have done it better, you know. And it's been wonderful. And I tell you, the pipers and the drummer last night for me was a home run, you know. So great idea. And I used to say it's a privilege and an honor, but it's actually, to come up here, it's a commitment and a responsibility. And because I'm sober today, I was able to take the commitment when Maddie called me and be responsible enough a day at a time to show up to be here. And that wasn't always the case. Before I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, my name wasn't worth the paper it was written on. I wanted to be there for you. But if a drink got between me and you, you're always coming in second best. And it's been a wonderful weekend here from start to finish. And I feel so energized. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about how it was and what happened and how it is today. And hopefully by about 1:30 or 2 o'clock, I should be able to wrap it all up, you know. I've just seen the blood drain on a newcomer's face back here, you know. Is that what they mean by willing to go in any lengths, you know? And we've heard some wonderful speakers this weekend. And unfortunately, that's going to come to a screeching halt here right now. And in fact, my job is to clear the room. There's a communion party coming in here at 12 o'clock, and I assured the manager that by the time I'm finished, you'll be able to hear crickets in here, you know. And so just leave whenever you feel like it. Don't worry about it. I won't take it personal. And when everybody's gone, I'll switch out the lights, and then we'll leave, you know. But how it was, Ernest Hemingway said, all writers tell the same story. And I think all alcoholics tell the same story. We all come from our various places and our different types of drinking and when we started and how we started and why we started, why we think we started. But our stories are very similar, you know, in many respects. You know, we took drink, and for a while in my life, booze worked. The closest thing to a spiritual awakening in my life that actually wasn't one was drinking alcohol. It was this close. It looked like the real deal. It felt like the real deal. You thought it was the real deal, but it wasn't. It was bogus. It was counterfeit. It was phony. Booze will give you a lift. Give me a lift. But when it comes time to pay the freight, and we've all paid the freight, booze will take us. But my experience that booze, you know, it's the old story, it gave me the wings to fly, and then it took away the sky. Booze in my life, if another man had did to me what alcohol did to me, I'd have killed him with my bare hands. But I signed up for this. And in the early days, I said, booze gave me a lift, but when it came time to pay the freight, watch out. In The Merchant of Venice, Shylock just wanted 1 pound of flesh. Not this disease. It'll take your job, your car, your wife, the shirt off your back. But what it really wants is me, 6 feet under. I believe of all terminal diseases, this is the most terminal. If I hadn't stopped drinking, drinking would have stopped me. I'm not around here a lifetime, but I'm around here long enough to what happens if you take your eye off the ball. This disease will kill you stone dead, with or without booze in your body. I don't need booze in my body to burn my life to the ground. I almost destroyed my life in sobriety with untreated alcoholism because I was unwilling or unable to put the principles of that program into my life. I wouldn't accept that there was more wrong with me than drinking. And if you don't accept there's more wrong with you than drinking, then you won't do more than not drinking to fix it. It took me a while in Alcoholics Anonymous to realize that I suffer from alcoholism. And that's physical, and it's mental, and it's spiritual. And in my case, it's wrapped up in a body full of sick emotions. Harry T-Bout, the shrink that helped Bill Wilson, coined the phrase, His Majesty the Baby. You're looking at it. I want what I want, and I want it right now. Now and more, the two words that almost killed me. I was happy. I'm happy when everything's going my way, and I'm getting my own way. And it's not that easy. This weekend's proved that to me. If you want to know about the progress you make in sobriety, I come up here this weekend in a car with my wife, my 8-year-old daughter, and my mother-in-law. Now, there's something to look forward to 20 years sobriety. Hey, when I'm 20 years sobriety, I get to go to conventions with my mother-in-law. Yeah, you know. Let me get into the steps right now, you know. And we come up here, and of course, I want my own way. On the car, it's like a steel cage death match. You know what I'm saying? And it's been tough, you know. In fact, sometimes I get nervous speaking on a podium. But actually, this morning, it's with a sense of relief. This is probably the first time this weekend that I got to finish a sentence, you know. And they tell me the bathrooms here in the hotel are very nice. I wouldn't know. I haven't been in the bathroom, you know. I've been showering down by the pool, you know. But that's, you know, I said, no, I'm only kidding around. Just one of the joys. But I said how can I tell this about my story? I just want to say to the newcomer here this morning, or maybe if you're not so new, maybe you're sitting out there this morning, and you're saying to yourself, I'm not laughing, Paul. I haven't laughed in a while. I don't even know if I'll ever laugh again. You guys all seem to come up to the podiums and you're telling me how wonderful your life is. Hooray for you. But what about me? Well, I'm here to tell you what I found out in Alcoholics Anonymous. You talk about that forest. You walk 10 miles into the forest, you got to walk 10 miles out. I don't believe that in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't care how deep and how dark and how painful that forest you're in right now is. As far as I'm concerned, Alcoholics Anonymous tells me you're just 12 steps away from a new life. Just 12 steps away from a brand new life. You hear people coming to Alcoholics Anonymous to go, oh, I came to AA and I got my life back. I don't want my life back. It sucked. I had it for 30 years. You want to take it? Go on ahead. I couldn't do nothing with it. I got a whole brand new life in Alcoholics Anonymous. Are there people that are in my life when I was drinking? Absolutely. But things are different today. My world is built on concrete. My sober home is built on concrete. And the world which it will, because of spiritual warfare out there some days, and the world which it will, just like that story I used to read my little girl, the world will huff and it will puff. But if I stay close to the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't have to drink no matter what. And I was an alcoholic who drank no matter what. My world today is on firm grounds. The foundation of Alcoholics Anonymous. Before, where was I? I was lost like we all were on a sea of booze. And there wasn't any coordinates. It was pain and misery. And once in a while I would wash up on dry land and try to put something together. But everything was built on sand. And the first drink would always arrive. And I'm washed out back to sea with more debris than the last time. I'm here to tell you, I'm here to sell this thing. Alcoholics Anonymous sells itself. It's a program of attraction, not promotion. But I'm here to tell you, T.S. Eliot says, the end is where we start from. You cannot get where I am today from where I came from without Alcoholics Anonymous. You just can't. It's an impossible journey. And I come to Alcoholics Anonymous because sometimes I get so wrapped up in myself, I don't see the miracle. And that's why I sponsor people, because I can see the miracle in their lives. I can be objective with them rather than subjective with myself. And if it's working for you and you're doing what I'm doing, well, then it must be working for me. Alcoholics Anonymous, I said, it's the last thing I tried and the first thing that ever worked. I'm here to tell you, if you hear nothing else in this talk, I'm here to tell you this. If you're new and you think you're burning, and you probably are, you're burning your life to the ground. I'm here to tell you that because of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith, in May of 1935 and eventually in June of 1935, that there's life after booze. There's life after booze today. And it's a pretty good life. I'm not going to stand up here like some snake oil salesman and promise you the moon and the stars. There's things that I lost through drinking that aren't coming back. And there's things you lost through drinking and they're not coming back either. But the program of Alcoholics Anonymous allowed me to come to terms with my past so I could live in the present for the future, which is the rest of today. I'm here to tell you as Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm not even going to tell you your life's going to get better. But what I will tell you, if you put those principles into your life, you'll get better. And it's been my experience that when you get better, eventually your life around you gets better. You know? And we're all miracles here this morning. I know we throw that word around a lot in Alcoholics Anonymous. Oh, I got up this morning and had a bagel. It's a miracle. It's a miracle. It had cream cheese on it. Another miracle, you know. What is a miracle? A miracle is a complete reversal or upheaval of the laws of nature. It's in my nature to be drunk somewhere right now, and I'm not. Now, how did that happen? Didn't happen because of me. If willpower could keep you sober, I'd be the soberest guy in America. But it doesn't. A miracle. I didn't take a drink today. You didn't take a drink today. We are miracles. A daily reprieve based upon our spiritual conditions. There's certain things I must do to get sober and stay sober. I'm here to tell you, and I found the hard way. I'm talking from experience. The only way to coast in Alcoholics Anonymous is downhill. And eventually you hit sea level and it's lights out. I seen guys drink again in Alcoholics Anonymous. I thought would never drink again. We all know. I knew one guy in particular. He said, pick one guy. That guy there will never drink again. He backed him, not taking his inventory. He backed himself into a corner. And he drank again. And he died drunk. And that tells me I must get my card punched. There is certain aspects of this thing that are nebulous. Gossamer-like. I must get my card punched every day. I must do what's been required around here. We were talking the other night. This is wonderful coming up here and speaking at these podiums. But my sponsor's old school. He said, "Will I tell you something? If you're active in your home group, if you've got a sponsor, if you're sponsoring people, if you're doing the 3 parts to the triangle and you want to go and speak at a convention, good luck to you. But if you're not doing that stuff, don't you be going up telling those people how wonderful your life is. If you're not doing the basics, then don't go up there and try to do the ice cream." And this is what this is. This is a wonderful thing. But I must, as an alcoholic, I'm here to tell you, if you're new here and you're saying to yourself, these steps seem like some foreign concept, and we do speak a certain language here, and there's a certain lexicon that's used in Alcoholics Anonymous, and probably you're confused and whatever. I'm here to keep it simple for you. We have a triangle if you are new. It's inside a circle. And there's 3 parts to it. Unity, service, and recovery. And I'm here to tell you, I believe this. And I believe it so much that I bet my life on a daily basis. I believe that you can work all 3 parts of that triangle from your very first meeting. The unity, the we. Many meetings make it easy, few make it hard, none make it impossible. Service. Heard Sandy B say one time, the highest pay grade in Alcoholics Anonymous is servant. I had to learn to give and give and give. Because why? Because I'm an alcoholic. I'm self-centered in the extreme. I'm driven by 100 forms of it. My Holy Trinity is me, me, me. My wife catches me all the time. She'll be telling me some problem that she's going through, and I'll glaze over. And she'll say, "You're thinking how this is affecting you." And I'll go, "No, I'm not, but I am." I remember saying to my sponsor one time, "I think it's DNA." He goes, "No, you would think it's DNA because it's so deeply rooted in you, but it's not. It's just it's self-centeredness to the point of hedonism. I just can't see anything. It's just me all the time. So I need to do service, to freely give what was freely given to me." And then recovery. Maybe the steps or whatever. We have the slogans, which were like the banisters to the steps. Easy does it. Live and let live, one day at a time. I believe you can work all three parts of the triangle from your very first meeting. And I'm here to tell you on the other side of the coin that you might stay dry on two parts of the triangle. You might even stay dry on one part of the triangle. But if you want to get happy, joyous, and free, if you want to get what's on offer here, then I'm here to encourage you. Not to sell this, but to encourage you from my own experience. Put all three parts of the triangle into your life. I sat in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was like a starving man at a spiritual banquet. There was all this food on offer over here, and I'm in the corner living on bread and water. And people saying to me, how you doing, Paul? And I'm here to tell you, you can fool them at 7:30 at night at the coffee pot, but you're not fooling anybody at 3:30 in the morning. When you land there with the could-haves and the should-haves and the would-haves, and this disease is eating your lunch inside out. And I'm down in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and all this food's on offer. And I'm over here living bread and water. Listen, guys, we sold ourselves short enough drinking. Don't sell yourself short in sobriety. Go for the brass ring. Go for the whole kit and caboodle. God wants to give you the stuff in abundance. Put your hands out and get what you deserve. Get the life that God always wanted you to have before drink took you down another road. In my own life, as I said, there are booze. I know this may come as a shock to some people here, but I'm not from the neighborhood originally. And it's about 25 years now since I left my native Cuba. And I come from, same as Patrick, and maybe you can identify. I wasn't one of these guys, oh, that's what alcohol does. I come from a hard drinking neighborhood. I knew all about booze, up close and personal. I seen it on this public drunkenness, in the home, outside. I knew all about drinking. And I took a drink at 14 years of age. And it was like my life went from, the only way I can describe it, my life went from black and white to colour, like that. I've never experienced anything like it. Unbelievable. The stone came out of the shoe, the knot came out of the stomach. I just felt a sense of, connection, whatever. Dr. Bob said that. He says, alcoholism, it's a form of spiritual thirst. We were looking for something. For whatever reason, I don't know, I ended up with a hole in my soul. I tried to fill it with booze and people and places and things. And I had some symbolic victories along the way, but it was all tenuous and fleeting. The only way that I really filled that hole in my soul was when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and got over contempt prior to investigation and put those 12 steps into my life. I'm here to tell you, you don't do the steps because they're nice. You don't do them because you're responsible. If you want to get physically and mentally and spiritually and emotionally rehabilitated, that's the deal. You want to have a spiritual awakening in your life, get your sponsor to take you through those steps. If you want to continue having a spiritual awakening, take somebody else through the steps. It's that simple. That's what's on offer here. I try to complicate this, square root this thing, whatever. It's a very simple program. Look at the program. It's laid out. Now, think about Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. Bill Wilson wrote that big book, 3.5 years sober. 3.5 years sober. I remember when I first came in there and I go, well, maybe when I'm 3.5 years sober, I might write a book. And then you get to be 3.5 years sober, you know what I'm saying? And you're not writing any books. When you think about that, it's been said that he wrote about things that hadn't even happened in his life. I believe he was touched by the hand of God. I believe that. That's my own opinion. He wrote about things that haven't even happened in his own life. And you look at those steps, the way they're laid out. I come in Alcoholics Anonymous and you think to yourself, just for example, step 7. What's humbly? No idea. Who's him? No idea. What's a shortcoming? No idea. You don't have to worry about that. Do the first 6 steps. And by the time you get to step 7, guess what? I know what humility is. I know who him is. And I know what a shortcoming. The brilliance of this program. Not only does it lay out the program of recovery, but it also records your progress. Unbelievable. A simple program. If we only avail ourselves of it. As I said there, I took that drink 14 or 15 years of age. And here's the sort of an alcoholic I am. I think Mike said this. I came out of the starting blocks, went right on my face. You know, some people say about losing stuff. Patrick said this yesterday. I never got anything. I never got started till I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. Booze, I came out as a young guy, started drinking, and just was like in bad shape from the get-go. I was a sort of an alcoholic. I'd be lying drunk in your front yard on a Wednesday afternoon. 16 or 17 years of age. Immediately, you talk about drinking with your peers. I immediately started drinking with guys that were 4 or 5 years older than me, because the guys my age weren't drinking the way that I wanted to drink. I'll give you one example of how booze really, it just swept down and just lifted me to a place I couldn't believe. I was just to give you an example, when I was growing up, I was a soccer fanatic. I mean, I lived and breathed soccer. I was like, you know when you see that commercial and you see that kid shooting baskets in the rain? Well, that was me with a soccer ball. Morning, noon and night. Patrick knows this from our neighbourhood. There was a guy who was one of world-class player, George Best, and he was a local hero. He was a hero. I had this picture all over my bedroom wall, and I wanted to be him. And I wasn't as good as him, but I wasn't that bad. And some of my contemporaries went on to have journeyman careers, playing soccer throughout Europe. But what happened to me? I took a drink. I don't think I kicked a ball 6 times after I took a drink. That's the effect that alcohol had on me. Something that I loved became secondary or tertiary, just thrown to the side. And by the time the scouts came knocking on the door, I was off and running. That's the effect booze had on me. And there was warning signals, just like Bill Wilson was in, when you read his story, in Winchester Cathedral, and he felt the presence of something, and he just caught up in worldly clamours he talks about. He's going off to World War I to fix the world. He drank for 15 or 20 more hard years after that. And the same thing happened to me in a bar one time. And it's a Wednesday. I remember it was like a middle of the week. I'm about 19 or 20 years of age. The legal age is 18 over in Ireland. And the next guy in the bar is about 45 or 50. And I'm in really bad shape. And this is before it was chic to drink out of a beer bottle. And they'll give you a bottle and a Pilsner glass. And the bar had these mirrors. And I'm like nervous in my hand. I'm in bad shape. And I start like this, and all this foam's coming out. And I put the thing back down again, light another cigarette. And there's a guy down the bar, and I remember this like it was yesterday. And this guy was like a half wino in the neighbourhood. In fact, if the owner had been there, he probably wouldn't have been allowed in. And he came down the bar and he put his hand on my shoulder. I remember his name, Jim Markey. And he says to me, "Paul, you can tell me to mind my own business," he says, "but I've been drinking for many years, and that's some shake in your hand you have for a young fella your age." And I palmed it off. Rough night last night. Boy, did those words ring true. I started off as a weekend drinker. Before I'm out of my teens, I was a daily drinker. Before I'm out of my teens, I'm taking morning drink. And my stomach pumped out in hospitals. Then what do? It's Northern Ireland. Patrick can identify with this. I was a working class Catholic from the wrong side of the tracks. There was a war going on. I blamed. See, that's the story of my life. I'm a finger pointer. I'm into the blame game. I'm always looking for an outside fix for what's really an inside job. It's my things out there. If I just get the right job and the right this and the right this, then my life will fall into place. Always putting the cart before the horse. I got the Alcoholics Anonymous A101. The change has to start with me. I got to fix me, and then those things fall into place. But you couldn't have told me at 19 or my early 20s, and my life's falling apart around me in short order. And I had good parents that wanted the best for me. And what do? I'm a runner. It's no coincidence I'm standing at this podium in Irish accent. I'm a runner. I'm a long distance runner. Somewhere, someday, over the rainbow type philosophy. My life only came together when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. But I don't know this as a young guy. So I come home to my father and I said, "Listen, I got some bad news for you." I said, "I'm going to America. And don't try and talk me out of it." He says, "Talk you out of it? I'll help you pack when you're leaving." On you go, Columbus. I washed up in a place called Rockaway Beach, New York. It's amazing how the alcohol, you ever notice that we've got this built-in GPS system? You can put me in a strange town, I don't care where it is. Before the night's over, I know where the after-hours joint is, I know where it's unbelievable. And people talk about, it's an old Irish-American neighbourhood there in New York on the shores of the Atlantic Ocean. And you talk to the old-timers, not now, just old-timers. And they go, oh, Rockaway Beach, the Irish Riviera, you know. It should have been called Cirrhosis by the Sea. They had more alcoholics per square foot in that town. And then to make matters worse, I got a job as a bartender. And I'm using the word bar here in the loop. Here's me going to come to make it big in America. I'm working in this crazy bar. But you know what that helped me to do? Which was the story of my life. It allowed me to move. I did that. Maybe you've done this. I would draw these lines in the sand. If I ever lose a job through drinking, I would reach it, step over it. If I ever lose a relationship, oh, please. I remember a girl one time who mattered a lot in my life. She stood at the door one time like this. She said, it's either me or alcohol. I'm not being macho. It wasn't even a contest. And as I walked off into the night to a flickering Budweiser sign, just like that lady in Days of Wine and Roses, I knew that relationship was over. But the drag, the magnetic drag for alcohol was greater than anything else. And I came out to America and I got a job in that bar, and it was a crazy bar. It was maybe a drink. No, you know what it says in the big book? We sort out sorted places. It was one of those type of places. It was a sort of bar you got thrown into rather than out of. You know what I'm saying? That's the sort of place this was. I mean, this bar had it all. Alcoholics, drug addicts, degenerate gamblers. And that was just the staff. That wasn't even the customers, you know. And we had some real debutantes drinking in there, you know. If you want to see a full set of teeth in this bar, you needed 32 customers, you know. Just give you an idea of the clientele we had, you know. But water finds its own level, and so do alcoholics. I fit it in like a glove. I'm not going to go into the whole ins and outs of it. The time I'm in my mid-20s, alcohol is coming down on me like a ton of bricks. I start to, at the point, like, and we do this. I start off, I know deep down in every alcoholic beats the heart of an isolator, but I was a pretty gregarious guy, pretty outgoing. I wasn't the life and soul of the party, but I liked to be around the action at the end of my drinking and sitting in my apartment, drinking round the clock, against my own will, totally alone. Everything's gone, everybody's gone. Bill Wilson sums up the best of an alcoholic's drinking. The end of it is best I ever heard. He says, quicksand stretched all around him. Boy, can I identify with that. No matter which way I turned, there was nowhere to go. All the stories have been told. See, anybody's here from Al-Anon, that's what we do. People just can't take it anymore. We just squeeze the love out of people till there's like nothing left. And they go, in my life, they were like, Paul, go away and drink. Go away and don't drink. Just go. And that's what we do. By the time an alcoholic hits alcoholic, there's nothing more devastating in a domestic setting than an active alcoholic. The alcoholic's neurotic. The spouse is neurotic. The kids are neurotic. Everybody's neurotic. You get somebody suffering from terminal cancer, everybody's upset and sad, but they're not getting emotionally wiped out the way they are living with an alcoholic. And I wasn't married, and what I always wanted, to be alone. Well, I got what I wanted. And I'm sitting in an apartment, and it's something, I don't remember the actual moment, but I remember sitting in an apartment, drinking, round the clock against my own will, and thinking to myself, I've backed the wrong horse. And it's something when you realize, and everybody's gone, and everything's gone, and you've backed the wrong horse. And I had. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous to put my life back together again. I'm not going to go into the whole ins and outs of it, but we're all miracles here, and here's my story. I love to hear that in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, you hear this nadir of people's drinking, this low point, and their story goes down and down and down, and then you hear, and then. I sit up because I know God's coming in the next sentence. And we all have our stories. There's nobody here. We're all here, you know. I don't like that thing. I don't like that chosen one. We're the chosen ones. That means the guy down the street right now cracking his first beer is unchosen? No. God's grace is like the rain. It falls on everybody. I just don't know, when that drop of rain fell on my face, I got that moment of clarity, and the guy down the block wiped it away, cracked another beer and drank himself to death. I don't know, but I'll tell you what I do know. I better freely give what was freely given to me. If you're new here, I'm around a long time, not a long time, 19 years. And I tell the guys that I sponsor, because I need to hear it myself, if I start talking in the past tense in Alcoholics Anonymous, pull my collar. I used to go to that meeting. I used to make coffee. I used to go to that detox. I checked that box. A guy called me, just on a side point, a guy called me recently, and he was sober as long as I was. He hadn't been in meetings for a while, no program, no sponsor, not sponsoring anybody else. And this guy's life was completely unmanageable. And he says to me, Paul, what do you think? And I says, I only asked him because I heard somebody else ask the same question. I says to him, when were you happiest in Alcoholics Anonymous? He says, oh, that's a no-brainer. My first year. When I look back on it, I was so happy. 4 or 5 guys in the car every night, going to meetings here, going to there, we're going to detoxes, picking guys up, bing, bang, boom. It was great. Didn't have much, but I was happy. I says, why don't you go back doing what you did in the first year of sobriety? Silence on the phone. Didn't want to hear that at 19 years sober. Wanted to hear like some special problem. You need a team of psychiatrists working around the clock on like some sort of psychiatric Manhattan project, you know? Working non-stop, some real special. No, my problems today might be different, but the solution's always the same. It's unity, service, and recovery. If you need outside help, no problem, but do what's required first and then go and get whatever. Chances are you probably don't need it. And this guy was saying, and he hung up and I never heard. And I thought to myself, sober as long as me, wife leaving him, business down the drain, not going to me. I said to myself, as the book says, the inventory is mine. So when I hung up the phone with him, I says, what am I doing compared to my first year in sobriety? And it wasn't as much. I was probably doing 50 or 60%. I says, Paul, you better get your foot back on the accelerator. You're telling that guy he's in park. You better get back and drive yourself. That's the thing about Alcoholics Anonymous, And as I said there, my miracle story, the woman who's my wife today was at work. And I've been locked up in an apartment drinking. And she broke down crying at work. And this woman who just started with the company says, why is that woman crying? And somebody says, she's got this on again, off again boyfriend, bad drinker. I meant to break the door down. Nobody's seen him in a while. She goes, my father's got a friend who's in this thing called Alcoholics Anonymous. Unbelievable. And a phone call was made, and a number was got, and a note came under my door with a man's telephone number on it. And I'm in the apartment drinking around the clock. And the bag's in bad shape. DTs, the whole lot. I used to have seizures coming off drinking. Now I'm having them while I'm drinking. And I looked at this number, and I picked up the phone. I called a complete stranger. And this man had been in AA since 1961. And he wasn't off in some ivory tower reminiscing how AA is not the way it used to be. Or this. He was still in the trenches. And what that man actually did was he parachuted onto the battlefield and says, Paul, the war's over. And allowed me to come to Alcoholics Anonymous, where I was able to acquire peace with honor through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. I love him to death. I see him regular in Florida. I just see him there recently. It was funny. You talk about, this is like young people's meeting. You want to see some real old timers? Get down to Florida. He says to me, we're going to go to a night meeting. The meeting was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I walk in, the average age of the group was dead. One of the commitments was stacking Zimmer frames at the door, And it was funny, and I said, Jerry, what's going on here? They must have got like a group rate, because for a group rate for a cataract surgery, because half the meeting was wearing those big black, wraparound sunglasses type thing, When I walked in, I said to myself, wow, a virtual AA meeting. This is really cool, you know what I mean? But I love him to death. But even Jerry, and I'll just go off on a note here about doing what's required here. Jerry got sober, and he tells the story from the podium himself. He got sober in 61, and 67 wouldn't do a fourth and fifth step. I know there's no one-trick ponies up there. It's a 12-step program. You know all 12 steps. There's no magic one step more important than the next. It's a 12-step program to bring you from a place of powerlessness, not to a place where you have power, but where you have access to power. That's the goal of the program. And he was holding something. You know, we hold that one thing back. I just can't tell anybody. I can't. And he sat in Bill Wilson's office. This guy knew Bill Wilson. And he sat in Bill Wilson's office in 1967. He sat sitting across from Bill Wilson, sharing one-on-one with the co-founder, the guy who wrote the steps. That might be him now. Don't worry, Jerry. I'm telling the story as it was. And he says, Bill Wilson did what apparently he would do in these situations. He would talk about the collective experience of Alcoholics Anonymous rather than get into the singular. And he says, Jerry, it's been our experience that those people that try to carry the load alone have paid a heavy price, sometimes drank. And Jerry didn't listen to him, and 2 weeks later, he was drunk. He drank 3 more times, and he's sober since 67. Now, he tells that story not to say, hey, I knew the co-founder of Alcoholics Anonymous. He tells that story, he said, you can be sitting talking one-on-one with the co-founder, but if you're not willing to do what's required here, you will drink again or go off a bridge because you can't live with untreated alcoholism. And that guy came to my house and he brought me to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And the greatest singular event in my life was coming in a meeting of AA. It's so far and above everything else. Because I was moving the problem to the solution. I met Susan, who's my wife, after my first meeting, and she says, well, and she had heard it all before. You know how we do, the promises and the oaths and the proclamations and swearing on your life and swearing on this life, and I'll stop for this and I'll stop for that. And I said to her, I found something. I intuitively knew there was something here, and I didn't even know the half of it. And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I made my next biggest mistake. It says in the back of the big book, contempt prior to investigation. You're looking at it. I looked at these 12 steps and 12 traditions on a purely two-dimensional level. Just words on a page. I didn't realize that those words have the ability to give me an entire psychic change. Now, what do we mean by that? For me, what it means is what wasn't important now is important. And what was important before is probably not so important. That was a psychic change for me. You know? And I came into Alcoholics Anonymous and I carried a lot of that contempt. I don't want to say it's a cultural thing, but maybe it's something to do with Irish, stoic, don't tell nobody nothing. How you doing, Paul? I'm doing all right. I'm smiling from the teeth, but I'm smiling from the teeth out, and I'm dying inside of untreated alcoholism because I won't put those principles in my life. I'm 2.5 years off drink. Now, we talk about the words pitiful, incomprehensible, demoralization. That can be with drinking, or that can be without drinking and no program. I've been to jumping off place twice in my life. Once with booze and once without booze. Different type of pain, but pain nonetheless. I'm 2.5 years off drink. I'm probably, now, talk about the 3 parts of the triangle. I remember saying to myself, coffee? I'm making more coffee than Juan Valdez. Are you kidding me? Meetings, I'm going to meetings left and right. But door number 3, the 3rd part of the triangle, I wouldn't do it. I thought these steps, I looked at them from a two-dimensional aspect, words on a page. I thought they were touchy-feely, warm and fuzzy. I said, I do these steps. The next thing I'll be wearing flip-flops in the winter time, you know, have like wind chimes hanging around the house, joining Oprah's book club. You know, where does it all end? You know, this nonsense. I mean, you think about it. You think about this. Only an alcoholic, you know, Harry T. Barrett, the shrink that helped Bill Wilson, talked about the recuperative powers of the alcoholic ego. I've got a term to the disease, and I'm going to tell you what I'll do and what I won't do to relieve myself. I mean, it's insane. You go to any ward, any hospital right now, and go to the terminal section, and you say, they'll say, what if I got? I'll do whatever. But we'll sit in rooms of AA, me, and I'll say, well, I'll do this, but I won't do that. I'll go this far, but I won't go all the way. I mean, it's total insanity. But that's what I was doing in Alcoholics Anonymous. As I said there, I paid a heavy price. I'm 2.5 years off drink. I came in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't owe much money. I'm thousands upon thousands of dollars in debt. And I know why today. I'm still trying to fill the hole in my soul. There's not enough stuff out there to fill the hole in my soul. I'd go to the Caribbean. I'd come back. I'd feel good for 3 or 4 days. But I always end up back at the same equation. Me on me. And I can't get me off of me. I'm shackled to self by the very biochemistry of this disease. Before I was handcuffed to a bottle of whiskey, now I'm shackled to self. And I'm lucky. A guy came up to me at a meeting on Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm glad for those people who go, oh, he's a 12-step inspector. I'm glad for the 12-step inspectors. Because this guy came up to me and he goes, Paul, you've been around here. What step are you on? What step am I on? Well, now that you mention it, and I go into a whole diatribe, As I say, we don't do the steps because they're nice. We do them for the necessary for recovery. He says to me, Paul, I got news for you. He says, you're dying. And the sad news is you're dying in AA. And even sadder news is the relief is on the wall. And I heard him loud and clear. My life was totally unmanageable. Totally unmanageable. Susan and I were in the house one night, and we got into an argument, and I punched a hole in the wall. Sheetrock wall. I never punched a hole in the wall drinking. And here I'm punching holes in walls in sobriety. There's a road in New York called the Gowanus Expressway, a busy road coming out of the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel. And this guy cuts me off. And I went in, and it could have been Tony Soprano behind the wheel. I don't know. I jammed him up against the guardrail and got out of the car like a lunatic. 2.5 years off drink. And I look, and there's an Asian family sitting in the car, and the wife's crying. The kids are in the back crying. The husband's sitting like that behind the wheel shaking. And I apologized profusely. I got in the car, and I'm banging my head off the steering wheel, and I'm saying, I'm crazier off drink than I was on it. And I go to my sponsor's house. I go straight to his house. I said, you never guess what I just did. And I told him. He says, how old were you when this happened? I said, what do you mean, how old when I was? It happened 20 minutes ago. And you listening to what I'm saying? He says, think about it. How old were you? His Majesty the baby. I want what I want, and I want it right now. I got to get power into my life. Nature abhors a vacuum. Mother Teresa says, even God can't fill a cup that's already full. And I'm full of resentment, hatred, self-centered fear. I'm up to here. And you see, before when I was drinking, when all that stuff would come up, what do? I get a bottle of Bushmills, and it goes back down again. Then it comes back up again. I get another bottle and push it back down. But now I'm in Alcoholics Anonymous. I know booze has failed me. And this stuff's coming up. And the guy says, Paul, the apparatus that we use to take care of that is the 12 steps. If you don't, it's going to choke you. You mightn't drink, but you'll go off a bridge because you can't live with yourself. And I heard him loud and clear. And I went home and I started putting pen to paper. And I was carrying these resentments around. I'm not going to go into the whole ins and outs of it. Resentments. And they were killing me. And the thing about these resentments, guys, they have no IQ. They don't realize that some of this stuff happened 15 or 20 years ago, 3,000 miles away. I'm replaying it like it's happening right now. And all the spiritual toxicity that's released in your body when you're living your life under those conditions. Emmett Fox says it takes two to make a jail. The jailer and the prisoners. And I had all these prisoners up in here. And every morning, just like a regular prison, I have to do roll call. Oh, yeah, I remember what you did to me. Got you here. Oh, yeah, you. And I'm replaying this over and over. It was only when I opened the door of the jail and I let those guys go free that I got to go free too. And I put these steps into my life. Didn't do it perfectly, but I want to do it perfectly. So I'm an alcoholic. I fought this fourth step for so long. I fought it and I fought it. I know there's no one-trick ponies. And then finally I says, they want me to do a fourth step? They want me to do a fourth step? I'm going to do the best fourth step that anybody's ever done in the history of Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to do a fourth step where people are standing around the coffee pot. Did you hear about his fourth step? Was it really that good? Oh, yes. It had everything. I wanted my sponsor to stand at the meeting and go, I just want the group to know that Paul, who I am honored to call my sponsee, recently presented me with the Hamlet of fourth steps. I laughed, I cried, I laughed, 2 thumbs way up, you know. And my sponsor told me, he said, listen, Paul, these steps, no one-trick ponies, and it's like driving to Florida. The big book will tell you exactly how to get there and give you explicit directions. You can't go wrong. The 12 and 12, let's think of it like a spiritual guidebook. It might tell you what you might see along the way. Those 2 books together, I was like, I said to my sponsor, he's been sober since 1961. I got modern defects of character, you know. I started getting these fourth step guides. I had every fourth step. I could have papered the walls in here with them. I turned my apartment into what's going to be described as like a spiritual nerve center. I mean, I don't want to have a piece of paper. I got flip charts. I got magic markers. I got highlighters. I got pots of coffee going. I'm like a dog in linoleum. There's a lot of activity, but nothing's happening, you know. And my sponsor's at the window. Your phone's off the hook. What about this fourth step? What's going on? I says, I'm working on it. He goes, how am I going to know when it's finished? Will there be like a puff of white smoke like when they elect a new pope? And I finally put this stuff. There's no one-trick ponies. And I'll tell you this here, what the steps did for me, what the steps really did for me. You hear people come down, oh, I'm working on me, and I'm working on me, and I'm working on me. All right, so you're working on you. But when my life really caught on fire, when great events really came to pass in my life, is when I turned around and I took another man through the steps. That's when my life caught on fire. We talk about the big book. We are survivors from the sinking ship. And do we sail off into the sunset, patting ourselves in the back? Ah, wonderful. No, we go back looking for more survivors. As I said just at the other meeting, it's none of my business who's sitting next to me in the lifeboat. It is my business that I'm going to reach out my hand. For that I am responsible. I'm not saying the 12 steps were the panacea for every problem I ever had, but they brought me to a point in recovery where I get to say it was my work, it was God's work, and if I needed outside help. And great events have come to pass in my life. A few minutes, I'll just tell you about how it is today. I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, 30 years of age, didn't have a high school diploma. And it's not about cash and prizes. The miracle is, one, I don't drink, 2, I don't want to drink because I found something better than drinking. But I came in here and I was a bartender in that crazy bar. I bartended the first 12 years in sobriety. I put myself through school. I went to college. I got a couple of degrees. I got 2 graduate degrees. All because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous taught me how to take on long-term goals, whether it be sobriety, developing a spiritual basis for living, halfway decent mental health, even education or job, and chip away at them one day at a time. See, I'm an alcoholic. I want it right now. I want to live in a life of perpetual gratification right now. And it doesn't work. There's a guy out in Malibu who sits in meetings 5 nights a week. He could buy a new Ferrari every 3 days if he wanted. But he's in meetings of AA because there's something stuff that you can't buy and you can't sell, and it's peace of mind. Emmett Fox says, if somebody offered you $1 million or peace of mind and you chose the money, you're a very foolish person. I'm at peace with myself today. I'm not perfect. There's days I'm sober and there's days I don't drink. But I hung around here long to figure out the difference. I realize what I suffer from. I try to do the best. You go up and ask my wife. I'm not working a perfect program. I stay away from the water walkers in AA. I want my epitaph in AA or my dog rule to be, he tried. Nothing beats a failure but a try. And all I have done is tried. Are we concerned how many times you fall down? Absolutely. But we're more concerned if you're willing to get back up again. and this chain of drunks that we can trace back from 1935. And what I have to ask myself each day is, how strong is my link in the chain? Is it strong to the people ahead of me, or more important to the people coming behind me? Am I often some ivory tower? No. I still want to be here. This is where the rubber meets the road. Became a teacher in Alcoholics Anonymous, and became a father. Became a husband. Then became a father. And these things were all foreign to my nature. I wanted to be these things. But being a father and being a husband meant being dependable and accountable and responsible. I was none of these things. And my sponsor says, that was as an active alcoholic. You're a sober man in AA. You can do these things. And I want to end on this here. So please, there's a life beyond your wildest dreams. I believe there's a miracle here with your name on it. Nobody can take it for you, and nobody can take it from you. Come up and get what's yours. In fact, don't even come up. We'll give it to you, because we have to give it to you to ensure and improve our own sobriety. But I'm here to tell you, you cannot get where I am today from where I came from without AA. When I drank for unconscious time. I'm free today. Patrick could talk about this. We're from Northern Ireland. We sang about freedom. We marched in the streets for freedom. We ran in the streets for freedom. I wouldn't have known freedom if it jumped up beside me. I'm as free today as any time I've been in my life today, because of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because I found out everything I need to know. I found out in AA. My name is Paul, and I'm an alcoholic. And that tells me who I am, what I am, where I am, and what I need to be doing. And if I do that, I'm all right. And when I'm all right, everything around me is all right too. Thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God for Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob Smith. I never took sobriety for granted, but I took AA for granted. Oh yeah, there's a meeting down there 3 nights a week. What's the big deal? And you hang around here a while and you learn the history, and you realize there was times in AA's history that our futures hung by a thread. Thank God for those old timers that keep that door open, because right now, I wouldn't have to knock on too many doors. There's somebody drinking themselves to death right now in Newton, Massachusetts, who in 2012 doesn't know one thing about AA. And our job is to keep that door open. Let your young people probably carrying this thing into the middle of the next century, or this century. Do not let this thing go down on our watch. Do not let the hard work that men and women put in to AA for the last 77 years go south, sideways. Keep that door open. If someone walks into your home group, they're going to hear a message of hope in human form. They're going to hear about the problem. They're going to hear about the solution. They're going to hear about how to go from the problem to the solution. Carrying this message. My message might even keep me sober. It's this message, the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, for that guy that's sitting this morning drinking right now. For that we are responsible. You know, one day. I'm going to end on a few words from a place of my birth. Maybe you've heard it before. I know it off by heart, but I'm always feeling I'm going to freeze. May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Thanks, guys. All the best.